have to give you a sunflower tutorial. There's just no way around that. All right, friends, first I'm going to get started. I'm going to mix my two colors. I'm going to use cadmium yellow for a little bit and lemon yellow for some of it, just to create a little interest. You know how I like to do. So first we're going to start with titanium white and lemon yellow. Don't add too much of the soft body paint if you're following this tutorial, because it will create a compromised texture with the Gaffrey paint. It'll make it too soft to keep those sharp peaks that we really desire when we're piping paint like this. I'm not going to mix it more than that because I quite like to have a couple different streaks of color when I'm piping, so I'm really happy with that. Next, we're taking some cadmium yellow, deep hue, and we're gonna mix it with the titanium white. And you can see how they're both yellow, but they both have such different shades, which is going to create a very, very nice looking sunflower, and it will look very playful. And that's what I like to create in my art a lot of the time. Next, we're gonna take a piping bag. These are called pastry bags, and you can buy these on my Amazon links. So this piping tip is unmarked. However, it's very similar to a 127. You can use a 128 as well. The 128 will be wider here at the bottom, and it will create a larger petal shape, but it's similar in shape to this. It's just different in size. Our yellow paint. And what I want to do is create darkness towards the bottom of that petal. And then the lighter yellow is gonna go to the top of the bag, which is the top of the petal. So first I'm going to take my cadmium yellow, and I'm going to place that in the bottom, and I'm just scooping it with my palette knife and placing it in there. Then we're gonna take the bright yellow, this is called lemon yellow, and we're going to try to place it downwards into the bag. Can you see how I'm trying to get it to be at this level? And I'm also trying to keep from adding too many air bubbles to the bag at the same time. In order to get rid of air bubbles such as that, and more importantly inside of the bag, I like to kind of slap it a little bit and then shake it like this, and then I also like to use my scraper here. So I'm going to be using acetate, and these are sheets of plastic that you can buy in a roll from Amazon like this and cut to your preferred size. And actually I noticed that I'm going to be doing this tutorial on extra hard method because I actually do not have my cake decorating, my rotating cake stand, nor do I have a piping tip. So I'm going to use this plate And I'm going to put some paint underneath my plastic there to hold it in place. And I'm going to rotate the plate as I would with my cake stand. It's just going to be a little more irregular than I would prefer, but we are working with what we have. So if you had a magic marker, and I don't have one right now, you could draw yourself a guide on the back of the acetate, not on the side that you're going to be painting on, and that would give you a very good indicator as to where your circle is. I don't have one, so I'm going to just kind of do something like this to create myself a little circular guide. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our piping tip and we're going to push it kind of down like this and pull outwards. And then press down, pull outwards. Press down, squeeze the bag, pull outwards. And then you're going to stop squeezing when you get to the end, and that's why it falls away. And the reason I like to do 4 is because it helps me be a lot more symmetrical. And when I'm first starting the flower, it's a lot more difficult for me to be symmetrical if I don't have that guide, especially now. So you're gonna kind of lay it down, pull outwards. And you can see I'm kind of angling it at a 45-degree angle. The slower you go, the more ruffles you're going to get. And the quicker you go, the straighter and smoother it's going to be. And then when I come more towards the inside, what I like to do is I like to lift up instead of out. And sometimes they fall, and that's okay because it creates a very natural look. And sometimes they stick straight up like that, and they look so cool. But I really enjoy it when my paint plays around with me too, because it creates very organic and interesting shapes. And you know, I'm the artist, sure, but the paint is just as much a part of this as I am. And so I like to play around with it and respond to what the paint is giving me and the inspiration I'm getting from the paint, instead of just forcing the paint to do what I desire. So we're working together, and sometimes it's a fun discovery to find new things, you know? And then as you get towards the inside, if you want to be super cool, you can create like short strokes like this. Oh my gosh, I love these because they're just like teeny tiny. Look at that. And then if you wanted, you could also take this similar method, and you could create a ball shape and then create a dahlia instead of a sunflower. But we're going to go in and create little dark circles in the middle of these, and these are going to be beautiful sunflowers. Look at that. Isn't that so fun? I kind of like it when my petals roll a little bit, and this kind of happens as the paint starts to dry a little bit on one side of your piping tip, and it's a very natural response to using a tip like this. And I think it's so beautiful, so I am going to continue playing around with that. So let's compare the first one and the second one. So the first one, you can see we've got a lot more stacked petals, and then this one is a lot more of that typical sunflower look. And this one's actually my favorite, so I'm going to create another one like this. And when I'm taking my acetate, you can see it kind of has a natural tendency to roll. So I try to face the roll downwards so that it's not rolling up as I'm trying to pipe on top of it. That just makes a huge mess and it doesn't work very well. So always try to face it down unless you have a vision that is different from what we're going for here. And you should always experiment. Don't just listen to what I say. You should always experiment because you never know. You might, like I said, you might be inspired by the supplies that you're using instead of trying to make them go the way that you want them to go. That circle's not very circular, but you can see what I'm going for. I should have made this a little bit wider. You can see I'm getting very close to the edge there. And the more you lay down your tip more like this, you can see, that gives a wider petal. If you pull straight out, that gives you a longer petal. So play around with your shapes and see what you prefer. I actually don't have very much consistency in my flowers, to be honest. I am perpetually changing and growing and going with the flow. And what that does is it creates a lot of fun for me and a lot of variety in my work. So I want to show you how to do things using consistency, like when you use the same stroke over and over. But I also want to show you how you can create variety within even just one batch of flowers, because I think that's what makes part of what makes this so charming, is because it's like we get to grow the flowers for once. You know, they're usually out existing in nature and we just observe them. But here, we are not just gardening, we are creating the shape of the flower with our hands. And I like to create things that are different and unique. You know, that's why I do what I do. To put my own flavor, my own spin on things. So I want to show you the skill, but then I also want to show you like why and how, so that you can put your own artistic creativity on it, because come on, you just gotta. And like sometimes, look at that, you can just layer them up on top of each other. And then it just really creates like a fun, interesting look. And I kind of like to play around with it and not have it be too much the same. So like one side of the flower might be a little more spaced out right here, and then this might be fuller. And I love to just be intuitive about this. This is really a great pleasure for me, and I like to keep it that way, so I don't force myself to do anything that I don't want to do. And how I maintain that is by maintaining a sense of fun and playfulness. If you've got something that you can kind of fold out, maybe like a piece of paper or something, you can kind of prop up part of your flower. And this is going to keep it from drying flat. And then you'll actually end up with some more interesting shapes and stuff. So you can kind of force the drying process to do some of the shaping work for you. And that's really fun for me as well. And then of course, you know, when you're stacking things in your bouquet, this one will be angled out a little bit more, and that'll just be super cool. Now, sometimes it doesn't work so well if your petals are too thin, so bear that in mind, but it's still fun to play around with it and see what you get and see what you like. So I'd actually like to show you a different method now of how else you can make a sunflower. And that is my circles keep getting worse, don't they? It is all right. It is all right. It does not matter too much. So it's going to start in a similar way. We're going to create our 4, but we're going to go up and we're going to go back down. And you can see how round it is there at the tip. So these are not my favorite sunflowers to make, okay? But it is a way to get a little bit of a thicker petal. And if you, okay, let me try to explain this. You kind of lean it out as you go up, and then you lean it back over as you come back. Does that make sense? It's almost like you're creating a petal that's facing that way. And then we're just gonna keep doing that because the reason we want to do that is to create more of an illusion of a point. You can see it looks almost like it could be pointed right there. But also it creates a very textured, very thick sunflower. And sometimes in your projects, that's going to be exactly what you're looking for. Now, also what you can do is you can create a base that's wider. You see like that? And this is a little more time consuming, so it does take some time, but it is quite nice to be able to do this. So you're gonna go out like this, create your sharp tip, and then come back in. And what else you can do is you go out, you keep your tip there, and then you can kind of angle it back the other way as you come back. Now, it requires a little bit of practice to maintain that control with your hand. At least for me, I have not been able to do this very well over and over. It is something that I am actually pretty good at right now for some reason. I guess I showed up to be on camera, so my body is cooperating really nicely. But when I do a lot of wrist work, I actually sometimes do have wrist issues. So for me, that is why it is so extremely important for me to use my rotating cake stand. So let's compare, and then you can kind of see and choose which one you prefer. So this is style A, and this is style B. Can you see how very, very different this is? This is nothing but points. This one is very, very hefty, and it also, to me, has a little bit more of that traditional sunflower look, maybe, because it has a lot of separation within the petals. But I really do like this one. This is my favorite go-to because it looks so wispy. And I really like a more whimsical look when I'm creating my artworks normally. But I always like to switch it up, see what else I can do and everything like that. So today I want to play around with this. It is called Joint Compound. I believe it might also be known as Plaster of Paris. I have been really interested in creating a lot more grainy textures in my artworks. So I didn't have any black paint from the Gaffrey heavy textured line, so I ended up using a mixture of my own, using black paint, so it just mixed it to gray, which I wasn't a huge fan of, so I immediately ordered some of the black heavy textured paint, and then once that arrived, I actually added the sunflower seed part. But this is a mixture of that joint compound, a little bit of heavy textured titanium white Gaffrey Art Materials, and a little bit of black paint. And I mixed this for so long. It is quite time consuming to mix in that joint compound, but I do like the texture that it gave my centers, and it did dry really quickly, so that was really cool. But as you can see here, I've got my brand new bag of paint, and today we're going to be using a tip number 74, and this is the irregular star tip I've talked about before. I don't know why it's asymmetrical, it's weird, but I do like it, so I do use it. And then this is tip number 5 from Wilton, Korea. I don't know, Wilton, Korea, it says on the side. So first I'm taking the tip number 5, and this is kind of where I started, and this took a very long time, so I did speed it up for you guys. But you can see I don't quite go into the center because I let myself just kind of start outlining from that divot I left in the center. And then you can see it, it's a very time-consuming process as I make millions of little dots. Especially on this larger one, it does take quite a while. But you can see how cool it looks. It looks super, super detailed, which I really love. And then once I'd done every single flower with all those dots, that's when I switched over to the other tip, the number 74. And I use the same black paint, but I'm gonna go around the outside of the center, and this is going to be the outer edge of the center of the flower. So I'm just squeezing the rest of the paint into that bag, and I like to cut off the excess of the bag just so it doesn't drag through any wet paint while I'm piping. And then I just did one row around the outside, and it's kind of hard to see in this video, but I think when it dries it looks really, really good. So that's why I chose to do it. And it also gives a little extra variety to the piping details. And I like to use all kinds of texture. Look at that. So once they were dry, that's when I started to go in with my shading. So you can see I'm dealing with some, I think it's burnt sienna, it's brown. And then I also have some permanent green, some permanent light green, I think, right here as well. So I'm really just going in with a brush and very, very lightly, not picking up lots of paint. I'm just adding in some very subtle shading, and that's what it looks like. So I did this to all of them. And then on this large sunflower, I actually pulled out some yellow to add to the top of the brown, and that gave it a lot more highlight, and I really like that. So this is a cadmium yellow, and you can see I'm just kind of dragging it along the top there and not blending in too much because I really like how it looks. See how cool that looks? And then, because we're not done yet, I started going in with lemon yellow on one half of the flower, and then I went in with cadmium yellow on the opposite side. And that is to create highlights on one side of the flower and I guess lowlights on the other side. This is just me being extra for fun. It's entirely up to you. This step is very, very optional. But I am giving you a very comprehensive guide to creating sunflowers. And so I just wanted to share with you every possible way you can make them pop. So I hope you guys like this tutorial, and I hope you guys let me know if you want to see more flowers. And also, look how cute my Peter Rabbit cup is. I got it from the thrift store. And then here they are dry, and then you'll just have to come back later to see how I use these in a bouquet. Have a great day, you guys. Thank you. Bye.